never realized that I wasn't really a Japanese until I returned to Japan for university. But come on, look at me. It's but natural to think that I'm not Japanese. But tell that to my husband because he still likes to introduce me as my Japanese wife. But I think that's the difference in definition when you say Japanese in Japan and, for example, Canadian in Canada. Anyway, when I was growing up in Japan, foreigners were a very small percentage, but somehow I didn't get it. I didn't get it that I was not Japanese. Of course, I was a child and I sort of knew my family was different, but the language I spoke, felt most comfortable communicating in was Japanese. So, what am I to think? So, today I want to share a little bit about my journey trying to figure out where I belonged, who I really was as I grew up in Japan, born to Indian parents. I'm Nasreen, by the way, founder of Japan Reiki Studio and head of Canada chapter here at Japan Reiki Association. I am so grateful for your support and thank you for being here today. Today's topic doesn't relate directly to Reiki, but I hope it will help you experience Japan through my eyes. After all, Usui Reiki is from Japan. I will also answer some of the questions you asked in the last few days over social media, but if you have more, feel free to put them in the comments. I would also love to know if you can relate to my story, because that has always been my struggle. I went to a university that specialized in foreign languages. I specialized in Japanese. I could do that because I was not a Japanese citizen. Although I was born in Japan, I didn't have a citizenship because Japan doesn't give you citizenship just because you are born there. Other Japanese students specialized in English, French, Arabic, even Hindi. In addition, the university had a department for Japanese as a second language, and that's where the fun begins. Because of the way I look, the students automatically thought I was a foreign student learning Japanese as a second language. They would come wanting to talk to me. I should also point out that students at this university were from many different parts of Japan, and many places in Japan didn't have daily interactions with foreigners then. So the students would, come up to me wanting to speak, and they would be really nice. They would speak in articulate, slow-paced Japanese, and I would respond, 留学生センターではなくって、日本語科で勉強してます。日本語科で日本語の勉強をしてます。日本で生まれました。で、ずっと日本に住んでます。今はアジアから通ってます。And their jaw would drop. I didn't have an accent. If at all, I had a Kansai accent, the region in Japan I grew up in. I can't remember what triggered this, but I would pretend to be a foreign student learning Japanese when people would speak to me randomly. I would speak with a foreign accent and broken Japanese, so as not to disappoint or embarrass the people who are talking to me. I think there was a complex psychology happening there. I began to wonder who I was, where I belonged to. And that was really when I realized, oh, I'm not really Japanese. I can speak the language, have the mannerisms, think in the same way, but I'm not really Japanese. I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but let me know. I would love to know if you share my story. I was exceptionally good at speaking Japanese like any other person living in Japan, compared to most other foreign nationals living there. I was pretty confident that if I spoke on the phone, no one would know that I was Indian. I think I'd be able to pull that off even today. And I think this happened because my parents chose to send me to a regular Japanese school right from kindergarten. You see, when I was growing up, most of the Indian families who had moved to Japan a few generations ago, like mine, lived in Kobe and around. I'm fourth generation living in Japan, by the way. So it was my great-grandfather who decided to make Japan his home. And because it was such a small community of Indian families, most families knew each other. Most of the children went to one of the two international schools, including my father, uncles, and cousins before me. They all spoke pretty good Japanese. My generation especially spoke well. And I think that's actually an Indian thing. But I went to a fully Japanese public school, 5 minutes away from home. I could actually hear the morning bell, and I would leave the house when I would hear that bell. And that's not at all a Japanese thing. So I was fully immersed in the language. Even when I got home, everything around me was in Japanese, except of course my family. In fact, because of that, my parents insisted that once I stepped inside the house, no Japanese language was allowed. They wanted me to keep my mother tongue Urdu, and they wanted me to learn English. I say learn English because I could hardly say my name is Nasreen at that point. But with my cousins, I would 日本語で喋る。私にとってもいとこにとってもその方が楽だったし、親に知られたくない内緒話もできたから、親に怒られるまではずっと日本語で会話してました。And the funny thing is, that became a norm, being able to switch between languages automatically. When there was a need for a secret conversation in public, we would switch to Urdu, and then when we had an Indian guest at home, the secret conversation would be in Japanese. But I got in trouble when I came to Canada. Just the other day, for example, I had a Reiki class with a Japanese student and an Indian student. I really had to be mindful to ensure I only spoke in English with my mother during the class. She is also a Reiki master teacher, and we work together. This reminds me of another hilarious incident about languages. It could happen to anyone, really. This happened on one of my vacations to Japan from Canada after I had moved to Toronto. I went grocery shopping to my local supermarket. I love the food in Japan. Udon is my favorite. But on that day, it was the fresh baked bread I was interested in. So I headed to the bakery, picked up my favorites, and headed to the cashier for the bakery. Customer service is another thing that is just outstanding in Japan. And that is what I strive to do as well in my classes and healing sessions. But I'll let you be the judge of that. So anyway, the cashier picked up each bread with tongs, and she bagged them individually first, then into the bigger bag. And while doing that, she began to speak to me in English. I wasn't surprised about that because the city I lived in had a high number of diplomats and foreign nationals. Also, many Japanese were taking English conversation classes as adults then. So that was not surprising. I responded in English and all was well. This happened again another day with the same person. Honestly, I was in a hurry and I couldn't really understand what she was trying to say in English, so I switched to Japanese. I responded in Japanese, but she continued in English. That surprised me and amused me at the same time. Have you experienced something like this? I think the brain was trying so hard to focus on the new language that it just didn't register in her mind that I had switched and began to speak in Japanese. But I think this can happen to anyone between any languages. So please comment if you can relate to this one. Now, going to a public school in Japan had some challenges for a Muslim Indian girl. A public school in Japan has a lunch service. It's not a cafeteria. The same nutritious meal is cooked for the entire school, and the students take turns bringing it into their classroom and serve to fellow students. I learned this later that my city ranked quite high in this area, so I ate some delicious Japanese meals 5 days a week. Saturdays were half days then. But as a Muslim, I didn't eat pork. But pork is quite a big part of Japanese cuisine. And often there would be a dish that had some element of pork. So what did I do? Well, the school dietitian would have a menu with detailed ingredients listed and printed, given to each student for the entire month. So in my first year, my teacher ensured I didn't get that dish served. And as I grew older, I made sure that I didn't take that dish. And on some days, I would only be left with milk and bread because everything else, soup, rice, the protein, would all have some sort of pork. But the beautiful thing was that the dietitian made me an alternate dish on those days. I don't think I have properly expressed my gratitude for that. So I want to say it now. ありがとうございました。So on a daily basis, there was something different happening. Sometimes it would be a positive experience like the lunch service, but sometimes it would be a negative thing like never being elected to student council. I would run for office every single term. My class would vote for me to be their candidate, but when it came time for the entire school to vote, it never happened. And that year in university, when I realized that I wasn't really Japanese, it was very disappointing. Because I had also realized a couple of years before that in India that I wasn't really fitting in there either. And when I talk about this, I joke that when I'm in Japan, I'm not fully accepted because of the way I look. And when I'm in India, I'm still not fully accepted because I'm still that girl from Japan who has an accent. But now that I'm in Toronto, Canada, no one looks at me. And I'm so happy about that. I'm not an exception. I am unique, but there are so many others who are as unique as I am. And I don't want to discount all the wonderful people in my life in Japan and India who did include me and welcomed me into their circle. I am here today, the person that I am, because of your kindness. So I am grateful for my Indian heritage and the Japanese heart I've learned to have. But today, I'm also very happy that I found a place for myself in Canada. Thank you for watching, and please let me know if you can relate to my story. I was not able to include all the questions, so apologies for that. And if you have more, please feel free to put them in the comments. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. don't forget to click the notification button so that you know when the next video is up. Reiki Precepts in English and Japanese. Only for today. 今日だけは Do not anger. 怒るな. Do not worry. 心配すな. Be grateful. 感謝して. Be sincere in work. 行に励め. Be kind to others. 人に親切に